Good morning. This morning I am talking about 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1. No, you didn't misunderstand me. It's not 1 plus 1 minus 1 equals 1, which technically it does. But from a spiritual standpoint, we're looking at 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1. In unity, we affirm that there is one presence and one power, active as the universe and as my life, God, good, omnipotent, and that we are expressions of this presence and this power. Jesus taught 3 distinct ways to relate, to be in relationship with the divine. These 3 distinct ways, interpreted by author and minister Paul Smith in the book Integral Christianity, are referred to as the 3 faces of God. The 3 faces of God. These 3 faces are all different aspects of the one. And think of it much like a diamond. And you have one diamond, but you have different edges to the diamond. And when you shine your light on one edge of the diamond, the light shines a little differently. You have a different experience of the diamond than you do at another edge. And so this morning we're going to explore these 3 faces: the infinite face, the intimate face, and the inner face. Now, the infinite face of God is that face of God that is the universe and beyond. Jesus taught about God through the infinite face. Much of that teaching came from redirecting the traditional Jewish teachings in just a little different manner. But that God is creator. We may refer to as God as source or divine mind, divine intelligence, the all that is and ever has been, the Alpha and the Omega. Jesus taught about God as the love of God. And one of the stories that Jesus used was the story of the rich man who had 2 sons. And the younger son comes to him and asks for his inheritance. Now, today we might think that's a little weird. But back in Jesus's day, it would not have been odd for the younger son to come and ask for his inheritance before the father passes, because once the father passes, all of his property would go to the older son automatically. And so the younger son comes and asks for his inheritance, and the father gives it to him. Now, the idea is that the son would then go off and invest his inheritance, would build his own family. But this son gets caught up in all the glitz and glamour of having money, the new toys that are possible to buy, and the partying that is possible to happen. And he is called the prodigal son because prodigal means that you lavishly just give away. It's extreme lavish living. And so he ends up with no money. And all he can do, all he can find to do is he can work for a farmer who raises pigs. And his job is to take care of the pigs. So one day he's taking care of the pigs and he's thinking to himself, I am broken, I am unclean, and I am destitute. Even my father's hired hands have it better than this. I will go back to my father and I will beg his forgiveness, and not to be able to live as his son, but if he would just hire me as one of the hired hands, that would be enough. That would be enough. And so he heads back to his father. Well, he's way down the road, but his father sees him coming. And his father doesn't see someone who is broken or unclean or destitute. He sees his beloved son. And he rushes out to greet him. And his son says, Father, I have sinned and I am not worthy, but if you would just hire me as a hand. And his father throws his cloak around him and says, you are my son. And I am so happy that you have come home. And he throws a party. Throws a party like he hasn't thrown a party in a very long time. He throws a party for his son. Now, when he greets his son, he doesn't say, oh, okay, well, I love you, but you're unclean. So after you go do the ritual washing and do the ritual practices that you need to do to become clean and get that smell off of you, then we can talk. He doesn't say that. Right where his son is, he sees his beloved son. That is the love that the universe has for us. That is the love that God has for us. Which leads me into the next face. And the next face is the intimate face of God. And the intimate face of God is the God that Jesus spoke to, that he taught us to pray to. He called this intimate face Abba. Now, this has often been interpreted to mean daddy, but actually it means mommy or daddy. It is a beloved parental name. It is that name that you teach the baby to call you, so that when the baby speaks those first words and your heart opens up, there's that intimate connection. Abba, beloved parent. He called upon this beloved parent in communion. And I'm not talking about communion in the sense of bread and wine. I'm talking about communion in a common union. He would go away and he would sit and be present and listen and commune with the divine. He would send the disciples off ahead of him so that he could have that time alone. And we too are called to have that time alone. Probably the most distinct example of Jesus praying to God is in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus pours his heart out. He pours out all the angst, all the fear, everything, lets it go. And he ends up by saying, thy will be done. Not my will, but thy will be done. Which leads to the next face of God. And that next face of God is the inner face. The inner face of God is the face of God that is within us. It is that indwelling presence. It is that which that we are. You've often heard me say, I am not all that God is. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. So it goes, all that I am is God. However, I am not all that God is. That I am made in the image and likeness of God. And the presence of God expresses through me and as me. This is the interface of God where Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Whoever sees me sees the Father. I am the way, the truth, and the life. It is that I am presence within us that is that deeper, truer part of ourselves that is not separate from, but that we are one in God. That we live and move and have our being in God and God within us. We claim the truth of who we are. Because Jesus not only said, I am the light of the world, he looked directly at the disciples and said, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. One of the most profound ways that Jesus demonstrated being the life, expressing life in its fullness, was when Lazarus died. And so when Lazarus died, what happened was the Lazarus's friends come to Jesus and say, he's really sick, you need to come now. And Jesus doesn't. He waits a couple of days. And then he says, it's time to go. And by the time Jesus gets to Lazarus, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. 4 days he's been dead. And Martha greets him before he even gets to the house. She greets him and she says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus says, do you believe he can live? And she says, I believe that he will be raised on the last day of the resurrection. And Jesus looks at her in the face and says, I am the resurrection and the life. And he goes and he calls Lazarus forth. He affirms the truth of who he is. He's the resurrection and the life. The resurrection and the life. And Lazarus comes forth. These three faces of God, the infinite face, the all that is, the intimate face, that which is all around us, guiding us, supporting us, is that inner voice that speaks to us. And we listen and we commune. And within that communion, a power is awakened within us so that we know the truth of who we are. And only then can we express that inner voice as God, saying, I am the resurrection and the life. One of my favorite teachings from Jesus is he says, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Abundant life. Did we come so that there may be life abundant? Are we expressing life abundant? When we engage these three faces of God into an integral wholeness within us, then we express both the immanent and transcendent aspects of God. It is when we do that that we are healed. That we are healed at a soul level, and we are here, and that actually comes out in the physical. And so I'm just going to invite us to take a moment. Let's take a moment in meditation. Take a time to just go within and connect and to acknowledge the wholeness of which we are one. And so we breathe into this sacred space. We breathe into this sacred space knowing knowing that there is a presence, a power, one presence, one power, and that presence and that power is active in, through, and as our lives. We breathe in this knowing that this presence is not dormant, but is alive and active. Ever creating, always creating new. We may have something on our heart this morning, something that feels heavy. I invite us to let it go. Or if there is an old belief that we are holding on to, a limiting idea of who we are and what this life is about. We surrender in this moment. Not my will, thy will be done. And having released, we claim the truth. I am the light of the world. I am the love, the peace, the joy of God in expression. I am grateful. And I express my gratitude in wondrous ways, in ways that brings more light into the world. I'm a channel through which the indwelling presence expresses in this world. And so it is. Amen. I invite you to take a couple of minutes. Just take a couple of minutes and breathe into this space. Allowing this sacred time to resonate within every part of your body. Allowing gratitude and thankfulness to rise up. And when you're fully ready, you may open your eyes. I thank you for being with me this morning.